Buying a rental property in the state of Utah is an amazing investment, but there are some things that you definitely want to know when considering buying your first rental or just being a landlord in general. Now, if you're not a landlord and you're a tenant watching this video, there are some things in here that you must know as well. So let's get started. Thank you so much for watching this video, and for more information, you can always reach out directly. In this particular video, in the link below, you'll find access to properties for sale in the state of Utah that are great rental properties, and you can go and sign up and take a look if you're looking to become a landlord. So let's get started on a few things about Utah's rental laws and regulations. Now, a few things about the security deposit in the state of Utah is that the security deposit doesn't have to be a specific amount. Utah doesn't regulate how much or how little the security deposit has to be. In essence, you literally can take as much money as you'd like in that security deposit, assuming that there are no repairs and that the tenant fulfills their bargain of the lease agreement. That security deposit has to be returned to the tenant within 30 days. Now, if I was a landlord, knowing this, I would put that money into a high-yielding savings account where it's making money off their deposit sitting there and essentially growing my portfolio even more, and knowing that that money will be available so that when the tenant does vacate the property, they get access to the agreement. Now, let's actually talk about the security deposit itself. As a landlord, it is very, very easy to start looking at things that you need to fix in the property and want to go to the tenant and ask them to give you that money from their security deposit. So what I would recommend highly doing, this is number one, is taking photos and then having the tenant themselves provide you with a checklist of everything that they've noticed in the property as well. So your photos and their checklist serves as conclusive evidence that they know that any additional damage that is outside of this will then be paid. A lot of landlords do not do this, and it is very, very hard to prove in court that these damages were done by the tenant without the evidence. And so keep that in mind. Now, also with the security deposit, I personally like to have line items of everything for my tenants. So when I hand them a checklist, it tells them exactly if there's a hole in the wall, it's $100. If there's stains on the carpet that I can't get out, carpet repairs, X amount of dollars. And I label it all out so they know exactly what it will cost them out of their security deposit if they choose to leave the property in that way. Now, the security deposit itself is absolutely non-refundable if the tenant breaks the lease for any reason. Now, Utah also allows you to have a lease break agreement, essentially having them pay you more money. So you can have a separate document explaining that if they break their lease, if they leave the property, they pay X amount of dollars to break the lease. Therefore, you get to keep their security deposit and the lease break fee. The best part about it is you can fill in another tenant instantly, and you don't have to backdate or give a certain amount of money back to the person for that lease break fee because it's a separate agreement that has been signed, thus allowing you to make more money. We've done that with our rentals. If they break their fees, they give us 3 months of lease payments depending on a certain tier structure. Therefore, in the first month, if they break their lease, they owe us 3 months of additional lease money to break their lease, and they also are surrendering their security deposit. Now, that may seem unfair if you're a tenant. However, please keep in mind that you've signed a legal agreement, and in the state of Utah, you are on the hook for that lease through the entire lease itself. So it's actually a beneficial thing that your landlord is providing you by giving you a way out without you being on the hook for the remainder term of that lease. And Utah will enforce it, and they have in the past. Let's jump into the controversy of pets. Do you need to have pets on the premises? There's a lot of people that will say, I have service animals. As a landlord, you are required to encourage them to apply, although they have a service animal. However, landlords are also given the opportunity to select the highest and best applicant for their property in the state of Utah. Thus meaning, if you have 2 applicants, one has a service animal and one does not, and that's a better term for you as a landlord and everything else is the same, you can, in essence, choose the other person and not have to allow the service animal to be on the property. Now, in the event that there is a service animal on the property and this is your highest and best tenant and you have to use them, I would recommend definitely having an increase in rent for the pet as well as a pet deposit, because pets are notoriously known to destroy things. Last and final thing, if you're living on the premises, you can pick and choose who lives in your basement. It is not violating fair housing. So you as a landlord, if you live in the property and you're renting out a section of your home, Fair housing no longer applies. You get to pick. One of the houses that I had a basement apartment, and we got to pick and choose who would be the best fit living and coexisting in this property with us. Keep that in mind as you're being a landlord. Fair housing rules do apply, but they usually apply to those that own 4 or more properties. Fair housing, you have kind of like a little bit of wiggle room where you can choose. I don't encourage you to blatantly tell people why or why not you're denying them, other than just providing them the common information that there was a higher and better applicant that you went with. Please be aware that the things that you as a landlord may or may not say could affect you getting sued depending on the tenant. Tenants know their rights. They generally know them very well and have no problem taking you as a landlord to court. I'm not going to say being a tenant's a bad thing. I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I've paid my lease break fees. I've not gotten an apartment. It's definitely difficult. But as a tenant, some of your rights are as follows. You as a tenant definitely have the right to request things to be fixed on the property. If it's a hole in the wall and your landlord doesn't come around and replace it, sorry, landlord's not required to fix a hole in the wall unless you can prove it that is a physical safety hazard, at which point you would want to report that. However, most cases, if it's a broken light switch, the garbage disposal doesn't function, or the dishwasher is not working, your landlord is not required to fix those things unless it causes physical harm. Now, air conditioning, heat, those 2 things definitely need to be taken care of if there's mold on the property. And if there's no electricity or water, obviously those are things you definitely need to report if your landlord is not taking care of it. As a landlord, with that being said, one of the biggest things I would recommend is, as a landlord, keeping the water bill in your name. You are responsible for providing water, and you don't want water to be shut off on your building. It could actually hurt your building by turning off the water, and what if the pipes freeze or some other stuff like that. So keep that in mind as a landlord. That's important. Now, as we jump back over to tenants' rights, your landlord is eligible to sell their property in the lease. However, the lease itself may or may not specify your residency on that property. So be very careful. If your landlord is planning on selling the property and is trying to kick you out, if your lease says that you stay in the property, you do not have to be kicked out of the home. A way that you could get around that, if you don't mind leaving anyways, is you can ask for cash for keys and have the landlord pay you a lease break fee for you to move out of the property. So keep that in mind. There's so many different things with landlords and with tenants that it's really, really important just to understand these laws. And one of the last things that I'll give you advice on is, if you have questions as a landlord, I would encourage you to join the Utah Apartment Association, where you're getting access to all of their forms, to all of their leases, and literally training on how to be the best landlord possible. Utah is very much a landlord-friendly state, and buying a rental property is very, very beneficial for multiple reasons. But please keep in mind that you can also get yourself in trouble without the proper knowledge and resources. You could also consider hiring a property management company, but with the right training and the amount of time you invest, you can manage quite a few of your own properties, and it will be easy and effortless for you. With that being said, if you are a tenant and you're wanting to get out and buy a home, there are certain ways that we can help you break your lease and get into a property, so please feel free to reach out to us. If you're a landlord or a prospective landlord and would like to know more information, please feel free to reach out. You can check the link below of what I would say are homes that are prime time, perfect rentals for you as a landlord. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a wonderful day.